Good evening. Muriel Ingalls, 100 Main Street, and I'm president of the Kingston Lake Association. And a couple of weeks ago, I put in a request for a building permit, I mean a sign permit to the building inspector, Pedro. And I think we had a discussion about this at one of your meetings, and it hadn't gone through the process with Pedro yet, and he emailed me to say that he had deferred it to you. So I'm depending on your vote so that we can proceed. I guess, do you have the...
A copy of the application? We did receive a copy of your application with a general drawing of the sign.
Right.
You intimated that it's the same dimensions and format as the Recreation Commission.
Right.
That, if I remember correctly, you were concerned because we no longer have a local paper.
Correct.
And wanted to promote some of your activities on that signboard at the lake entrance on Main Street. Am I correct?
And I think it will be a bigger service than just our Lake Association information. For example, if there was a cyanobacteria alert, we could put that on the sign. We can let people know when we're sampling. We can put up loon nesting information. I think there's lots of things that we can do. I don't think we've even scratched the surface of ways that we can communicate about the health and water quality of the lake. So I think it would be a community service, actually. And I think we were fortunate enough, when Stephen Clark passed away, the Clark family requested that in lieu of flowers that they could, or other things, they could make a donation to the Lake Association. So we took in a fair amount of money for us for that, and and so we would like to use that money to put up the sign and let the Clark family know that that's how we're using it, and we'll have some information on the sign in regards to that. So I think there's lots of goodwill that could transpire from this activity.
Questions, comments?
So just a comment, I'm in full support of this, but just so that everyone understands, the reason that the Lake Association is here asking us is because the building inspector cannot grant a sign permit because the sign as it's proposed in that location is not an allowed sign per the ordinance, but because this is a town sign proposed on town property, it does not need to follow the ordinance, but the building inspector doesn't have the authority, so that's why it's in front of us.
Yeah, thank you.
Glenn, you stated it was a town sign. It's not a town sign.
Well, oh, okay.
So
it's on town property.
Correct. So so I am in full support of this. All right. And hopefully I'll be working with Miro on the state park venture. But the only question I have that how are we going to regulate who puts signs on the town property? See what I'm saying? As far as another applicant comes in and says, we want to put our signs on the plains. I think we need to have some type of a regulation with this, how we can control so other people, we're not going to get bombarded with signs on the public property. I'm in favor of this. I want you to know that, but I'm trying to figure out how we can regulate that.
I think it's an as-is situation of
Case by case.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. With that, I don't anticipate a whole lot, but you're right. Somebody could come in down at Ridgewood and want to put a sign up there, and we'd have to, deal with it there. But I think rather than trying to write another policy and set that up there, we won't have that many, and it would be just as easy to have them come in as it's done here, go through Pedro as they've done, and this meets all the criteria for the sign size and all that, and then again bring it to us. But
that's what I'm thinking. Like the Ridgewood Association, they have a pretty organized group over there, and then all of a sudden they're going to want the same sign on the front lawn of the fire department.
So that begs the question, though, what is our standard for the signs that do go up? Do we want them all to have the same feel, or is it just going to be
Well, it has to meet the sign code regulations, that's about kind of.
But
how
I
you
don't,
control.
but I think it's different than what's in front of the library, and that's public property, so I don't think the rec center is the same as what's in front of the library.
There is no standard.
But
Well, that's what I'm asking. Do we want something so they all have, so we know it's town property, they all have the same look and feel, or is it just whatever they feel like they want to put up?
well, I think I appreciate what the Kingston Lake is doing in terms of having a sign that's similar to the one that's at the rec. And I think that will generate some continuity right there, and I think that's a good idea. If we start trying to have a formatted town sign, I don't like that. I think it's too much control. It's my personal opinion. The only caveat would be that the Kingston Lake Association is not a town organization, so that makes it different right in and of itself. And so therefore, anything you put on it has to be about town activities, not political statements or positions or any of that stuff. But if you keep supporting the lake and its environments like you do with the newsletter that you send out, to me, that is fine. But in terms of trying to get a set sign, we're not there yet. Maybe in a few years we will get to that point. And I understand and appreciate your comment about Ridgewood, but I don't see that happening anytime too soon. So until we have a problem, let's not anticipate a problem. I guess that's where I'm going with it.
I'd make a motion to approve the sign as printed on the application, providing it meets the sign code and any other regulations that the town would have.
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Does it meet the actual sign? It does, okay.
I believe it does. I haven't checked it against the ordinance. I haven't.
Okay, but Mrs. Engel's point was that it's the same size as the one in front of the rec.
Right, and the point is, again, because it's on town property, it doesn't necessarily need to follow
Gotcha, okay.
the guidelines.
Right.
But as I read the application, it's not an electronic sign, and those are prohibited in town. I didn't see any lighting on it.
I was hoping to have lighting, you know, the rec. I think the
Exterior
rec-
lighting?
Just lighting, solar lighting, that would reflect up to the sign.
Okay, so that's not internal lighting.
No,
Okay,
I think
well,
it's the same as the rec center.
okay,
Okay,
all right. Well, that's fine from my perspective.
I intend to work with Phil, too.
well, that's good.
Yeah, that is good.
We need to keep that man busy, you know.
Right, I will, yes.
Phil, do you have any comments about this? I do not. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Well, there's a motion on the floor to approve the request by the Kingston Lake Association to put up a sign replicating the one in front of the Recreation Department at the boat launch area of the Kingston Lake. And we have a second.
Right.
Further discussion.
Do we, I realize that it's in our purview to say yea or nay to this. Do we want the motion to, do we want the permit to be granted? Do we want to ask Pedro, the building inspector, to actually grant the permit?
Yes.
And authorize the building inspector to grant the permit to the.
That way it goes through the process.
Yeah.
It gets checked, whatever has to happen to it with our town process.
Exactly.
So does he email me or call me or?
Well, assuming the vote passes, and maybe we should do that first before we, before we do instructions, but
Okay. All right, any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
I,
Opposed, say no. Ayes have it, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
so Susan will let our building inspector know that this has passed, has been approved by this board, and we will instruct him to issue the building permit or the sign permit based on the application that was submitted.
Correct.
Yes?
Yes, good, okay.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next hearing is with Mrs. Tammy Bakey regarding the window installation for the town clerk's office. Mrs. Bakey.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm here tonight to ask you to reconsider your decision about putting in a window in the town clerk's office. So I'm not sure if all of you are aware, although I know Ms. Sweat is, that there at times we have a line. And if we have 4 people there and only to work and only 2 windows, we can only wait on 2 people. Although the person sitting back can still do log licenses or taxes or run the credit card. There's all kinds of other things we can be doing, but it would be nice if we could wait on another customer. Today, I tried to wait on several people through that little window in the door, and it's difficult. It's not a good idea if you're going back and forth to the cash register with cash. It's just not. It's not convenient. It's not a good setup. We tried, but it doesn't work.
Discussion.
Tammy, the location of the window, if I'm facing the two, it's where the wall comes out on the left.
I'd like you to look at my very professional drawing that I've done, that I have given to Phil, and he loves it.
Thank you. So it'd be right in here. That's the regular, this is the current window.
No, window, and it looks like the other window's out here, not in here.
I'm confused.
Okay, Tim, is the window,
So the red is what it will be. The red is what it will be, and the other is what it is now.
okay, gotcha. So we're gonna lose all that hall space then, right?
We're gonna lose some, but gain some. So we're gonna gain it over here, and we're gonna lose it here.
Okay. All right, discussion. Mr. Bakey.
I'm sure this was brought up because of, we talked and voted on an engineer to look at the building.
Correct.
So we put this project on hold. So I guess my only thought would be if that is gonna stay, I mean, that corner of that building is gonna stay the town clerk's office. I just see that as moving forward in the process, and that can be incorporated with that engineer's design and idea, if it's gonna stay there. I mean, if they were moving up onto the stage, then why are we doing that down there? But if they're gonna stay in that side of the building and it's working, I think it's just moving forward.
So I will say that I have never heard any discussion about moving the town clerk's office anywhere else, and I do have to be with that vault. So if I'm moving on the stage, the vault's going with me, so.
Yeah, I don't, whatever might happen on the stage, I don't think that it ever was intended
I know.
for your office. Intended for other things, perhaps.
Right. Yeah. Or even like switching sides, I like I said, I can't, I have to have that vault with me, so.
Was this work going to be done through Phil, or are we going to hire somebody, or?
Nope.
That was the plan, I believe, so.
That was the plan.
Would you like to add to the discussion, please, Mr. Coombs? I know.
Well, I made it through one appointment. I guess the only thing I was holding off on this project for was to figure out which way we were going with things downstairs, because this is going to entail tearing down walls and moving electric, and I believe there's a couple Cat 5 cables, internet connections, things like that that have to be moved. So until we knew which way we were going with things, that was the only reason this was on hold. This has been in the plan for a while.
Right. Well, I don't think it'd be, go ahead, did you want to?
Well, I think, if we move forward with this, what does that do to what we decided last week when saying everything was gonna go through an engineer for all internal work?
Well, I don't think it takes an engineer to move the window.
I think it's more involved than we think it is,
No.
but my question is, what does What does that impact? Because there's electrical, there's other things involved. So if we can, so are we gonna abide by what we said, or are we gonna then go back to piecemealing? Making exceptions, well, it's just this, it's just that. I'm just trying to get a feel for how we're gonna move forward.
Well, this is something that I know Mrs. Baker has wanted for a while, number one. Number two, I do think we still need an architectural rendering of what we want to do with the overall building. But I don't think this change in the town clerk's office is enough to make a difference in throwing good money after bad. I don't think we do that. Because it's not going to happen, any changes we make on the overall building, other than the front stairs, is going to take a few years. It's not going to happen next week or next year even. Because we're gonna have to raise money, it's gonna take time, we're gonna do it in stages. It's my anticipation. I don't see it happening at once. Even if Mrs. Baker has it, the new setup for 3 years, I don't think it's throwing good money after bad, is my point. So I would support the renovations. Mr. Kuhn, I saw you motioning for your microphone.
I guess my only concern is if an architect comes in and says the bathrooms have to be moved or something has to be done that's radically different from what everybody's envisioning at this moment, then it will be good money after bad. I mean, we've made, and again, I'm not trying to deny this or anything like that, but if we're going that route, we don't know which way that's gonna go. And we've had a lot of things change and then have to go back and undo them or redo them later.
325 years worth of things like that.
Yes.
That's how we've been doing it, I agree. I guess, I
But
don't, go ahead.
I just don't, I hear what you're saying, but if you move the bathrooms, you're not gonna move all three of those, or 2 windows out of there, you're not gonna do anything there, I mean, if we have the whole building done with an architect, I don't believe they're gonna change.
I've watched 4 renditions of the offices on the selectmen's side and their building department, and that's been in 5
That's-
years.
Yeah, that's okay, we're not talking about that, we're talking about the
We
other
are, because this is just another one of those into
Yeah, that's the
that.
flip side of it. It's the flip
But you're
side.
not going to change those 3 windows, I wouldn't guess.
We don't-
If
we-
the
we
architect
won't-
was on
we won't
that
know
side of
that.
that hole.
We don't know.
We don't know that.
That's the whole point. I mean, I don't.
We don't know that.
Right, I mean, I don't know how long it would take to get, the work is one thing, right? But I don't know how long it takes to get somebody in here. Is it like 4 or 5 months to have somebody come in and do it and give us the drawing? And then if we determine at that point we can do that work internally, or, I mean, there's two.
It's a long,
We're not looking at a 1-year project here.
I understand all of the work is gonna be a long time, I understand that part of it. But what I'm saying is, if we get a drawing, and they say, if you want the 3 windows, but we still need to do this, this, and this, and it's gonna require all of this extra work, then that tells us right there that we can't do the 3 windows yet until the other things happen. We don't know, none of us are architects or engineers in here. So, we don't know what they're gonna uncover.
I know this is something that's been in the works for quite a while.
I know.
Tammy, can you help me at least understand how often things back up down there to the point that you feel it's unreasonable?
It did at least 10 times today. It was the first of the month. It's dog season, but there's always a reason. There's, election time, people are coming in with their absentee ballots.
Yep.
There's, tax bills are due, so people are coming in for that, or.
So it tends to happen at certain times.
Yeah, other times you come in, there's no line at all.
Peaks and valleys.
Correct.
Okay.
I just think we're doing a disservice to our residents if we can't wait on them, and people are saying we should bring back the little ticket like at the deli counter.
I don't think so. Laurie does not understand, you have no clue. You have no clue.
All right, so how about we compromise? How about if we just do a window right here? Then you don't have to change any electricity, you don't have to change knock any walls down, just, you have the windows unless you guys threw them out. From when COVID came, we had 2 windows that you replaced. We still have them. How about we just blow a hole right there?
Where, Tammy, where are you showing? Where the,
So right
Yeah.
here,
right,
so it kind of be jagged out.
yeah.
But
So would that really solve a problem, because, or is that too cramped if you've got people lined up at the other two windows and then you've got that?
Well, it'd be more in front of where, not quite where Tori is, but kind of,
Right.
there's a
On that
bulletin
wall.
board, yeah.
Just cut a hole and make a window. And then we're not moving anything, it gives you that, it's a temporary until we figure out the bigger plan.
It would be a little awkward because it's not gonna be in a line, so that person's gonna be kind of stuck out, but I'm trying to work with everyone and play nice in the sandbox.
I'm down for whatever you.
What say you?
I'll make a motion that we allow a window to be put in, a third window to be put in at the discretion of you two guys as to how you want to go with it.
That means you have to do it.
Again, I never had no intention of not
No, no,
doing
no,
this, it was just
I just.
how we were paying for it and when.
Well, that's two good questions.
Well, if it's being done in-house, to the extent of the labor, for the most part, you might have to buy window trim and that kind of a stuff, but I'm assuming that from the facilities budget, there's got to be a little bit of money in there to do whatever you might have to do.
Yes.
Okay, so, does that work?
So I think I just want to be clear on what I'm saying here. I just talked like right here, so.
Okay, so I'm sitting at my desk, window, and we just have a window, and a window.
Right here, okay, all right.
Did you second that?
No, there's a shelf with a door.
There's a cabinet, yes.
Oh, on the inside?
Yes.
Okay. We just had to do that.
The motion to do it internal.
So it's just so, you probably shouldn't have to move the light reserve. We don't know what's in that wall. Well, everyone's sitting in it.
No, she was asking that. Susan was just saying, I think she was looking at you to see if you seconded it, that's all. So.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion?
I mean, I'm really conflicted here because I can understand the need, but on the other hand, we're going to be yet going back on another iteration of what we just told the Public Works Director of how we wanted him to proceed with things. And that was painful enough, and you know, thinking about making another change to what, or the direction that we're giving him. So I guess I'd be more comfortable if we could. We've asked him to get a sort of an overall plan, and then.
Well, the question is, what is the status of the overall plan, Phil?
I have one architect coming out next week, another one I'm playing phone tag with right now.
And didn't the architect that did the fire station give us a proposal at one point in time?
Yes,
For a
and I would say
particular
the scope
fee?
of that has grown exponentially, so he has to come out and look at it again.
He had some idea at that point in time, and we had I'm assuming they'll come in and bid on it also. I would
Yeah, he's
guess.
the one I'm playing phone tag with.
Yeah. Oh,
Have
is that
been
the one?
since October.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of the point is that I think we're all in favor of having the building looked at, but, you know, we're talking months and months and months before anything's ever gonna happen, let alone funding of the thing. We have ARPA funds to fund some of it. So for me, for my thinking, a simple, because it's being done internally, just like we wanna do something with the server door or server area there, that it just doesn't seem that, and she's requesting it, that we've got to wait 6 or 8 months or whatever it might take to do. You guys are saying that, see what the architect's plan looks like, and if there's no change down there, then we could go ahead with a window at that point, but how long do you think, Phil, it would take to get the RFP out and get the information back, and then we have to decide on whether we want to go with the architect. We'll even see the plan, so we won't know.
In 7 months, you've been playing phone tag, so you're telling me a couple more months. Then it has to get done.
I agree, that's what I'm,
I don't think you can answer the question, is what I'm getting at.
oh, all right. We'll let him off the hook this time. I said, we'll let you off the hook this time, then. I don't know, it just seems like a simple project that's being done in-house, a couple $100 or whatever it might cost for materials, doesn't.
Yeah, the window may be more like 1,000 than a couple hundred if we don't have them already, but I think it's short money. Any other comments? And I'll assume you're ready to the question. All those in favor of granting the request to put in a third window down there in-house on a minimal scale, please say aye.
All right,
Opposed, say no. No. Abstention? Should. No. Okay, ayes have it, 3-2. Thank you, thank you, Phil. Okay, item next, we have a public hearing for the purpose of considering the application to renew the discretionary preservation easement on a barn at 108 Exeter Road, tax map R37, lot 2. This easement was granted pursuant to RSA 79D and must be renewed every 10 years. Application, info from assessor, and checklist is in our packets. And I'm going to call Mr. Mr. Landry to come forward as chairman of the Heritage Commission to propose his recommendations. And Mr. Bean.
And Madam Chair, I need to recuse myself because this is my
Appropriately
property.
so, yes.
then, therefore the answer is no?
Mr. Landry.
Okay, what I'd like to do is just read something out of the RSA regarding discretionary preservation easements so that people understand why, in fact, we have that program. And basically, it talks about public interest, and discretionary easements are based on the determination that giving an easement to maintain that barn is in the public interest. And here's what it says. It's hereby declared to be in the public interest to encourage the preservation of historic agricultural structures which are potentially subject to decay or demolition, thus maintaining the historic rural character of the state's landscape, sustaining agricultural traditions, and providing an attractive scenic environment for work and recreation of the state's citizens and visitors. It's further declared to be in the public interest to prevent the loss of historic agricultural structures due to property taxation at values incompatible with their preservation. The means for encouraging preservation of historic agricultural structures authorized by this chapter is the acquisition of discretionary preservation easements by town or city governments to assure the preservation of such structures which provide a demonstrated public need. So the legislature, when they came up with this, basically determined that it is in the public's interest to maintain, help to maintain or ensure that these buildings are maintained over time, and that a discretionary preservation easement was the way to go ahead and do that. So that's kind of the foundation of why we have the opportunity to give discretionary preservation easements. It's also in the interest of the town of Kingston as well. I think if you go back to the 1999 and 2016 Envision Kingston activities, basically maintaining the town's rural character was one of the major outcomes of those exercises, and so this kind of thing helps to maintain the rural character of the town by helping individuals who own these barns to be able to keep them and maintain them. Also in the master plan, it talks about encouraging the preservation of working farms. So there's a number of reasons why it's appropriate to go ahead and do a discretionary preservation easement. To be eligible, there are 3 criteria, and you have to meet at least one of the criteria. One of them is that there's scenic enjoyment of the structure by the general public from a public way. So basically, if the barn's on a public road, it does make it eligible. Or the structure is historically important on a local, regional, state, or national level. either independently or within a historic district, or the structure's physical or aesthetic features contribute to the historic or cultural integrity of a property that's already on the National Register of Historic Places. And we only have one or two of those in town. So basically, this application meets the criteria as a qualifying structure by having scenic enjoyment from the general public by looking at it from a public way, and it's historically important on a local level. So that's the reason why we believe it's appropriate to grant a discretionary preservation easement to this applicant. So selectmen have the discretion to offer a tax abatement into the varying from 25% to 75% of the full assessed value of the property, and that is your discretion, at your discretion to do that. To aid in that determination, the board asked Bob and I on the Heritage Commission, Susan, administrative assistant, to try to develop a system that's has a standardized process flow and standardized criteria so that there can be some consistent application of criteria as we go through from application to application to application. We've also had Laurie involved in some of the review of the forms to make sure they seem to be all right. So the process is that the owner applies for it, site visits conducted to take a look at the barn. The board conducts a public hearing on it, as we're doing now, and then decide to approve, deny, or whatever. Part of the process also involves someone from the Heritage Commission or some other person to go out and take a look at the barn and make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, or for the board to go out on a site visit to do that themselves if they so wish to do that. And then your board would notify the applicant, and if it's approved, then would work on developing a discretionary preservation easement for that property. So that's kind of the process for where it goes. I think you have the application in front of you. The recommendation that Bob and I had made on this was that looking at the criteria, it meets the criteria for a level of 75% abatement. And so that's the recommendation that we had on that. And if you had any questions, we can go ahead and answer those.
Okay, thank you.
Peter?
Mr. Baker?
Just kind of curious, I'm not really familiar with the barn abatements that you're talking about. I was just listening to what you have to say. I am familiar with the current use and with conservation easements. Yep. And those are basically an opportunity for a tax reduction.
Right.
And I feel like this is obviously the same thing. But down the road, if any of those properties, conservation especially, if something goes into a conservation easement in the state of New Hampshire, it's almost impossible to reverse that. If you have current use, you pay a percentage of the assessed value of the land back to the town to remove it from current use, right, if you want to build a house on it. My question on this application is, he moves in 2 years. Is there anything that can mandate the new buyer to keep that property the way it is with that barn?
Yes.
Or can they just take it down?
Yep, no, the easement goes with the property.
So, okay, so they're required to
Right.
maintain that structure?
Yep.
Perfect, that's what I want to know, thank you.
And as time goes on, you know, if you approve this over time, probably on an annual basis, or somewhere around there, it would be great for somebody to go out, probably the Heritage Commission or someone else, to go out and look at the barn to make sure that it's still being maintained in the status that it was when the preservation easement was granted. There are provisions in the RSA that say if the barn is, you know, demolished by, well, for whatever reason, as well as just neglect or whatever, that you can terminate, the town can terminate that easement, and the individual would have to pay back to the town a certain amount of money that they had already received for that easement. And there's a formula for that purpose in the RSA.
So with the, they would have to, any applicant would have to apply every 10 years. So within that time, if nothing has changed, then they go forward for a renewal. But if something's changed, whether it be ownership or condition, that would be when,
Well, the easement goes along with the property, so any
Right,
new
right, I
owner.
get that part,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, the term is for 10 years, a minimum of 10 years, actually. It could be longer. And then at the end of 10 years, it needs to be renewed. And when you do the preservation easement, you can identify the means of renewal, whether or not you want the person to start over as new, or whether there is some other method that you want to use for the renewal.
This was a renewal though, am I correct?
Pardon me?
This is a renewal.
Well,
Yes and
it
no?
is and it isn't. The preservation easement that was on this property, which expired, the easement did not indicate, I think it indicated that it would be renewal where the parties would begin the process as they had begun before.
Okay.
So that it basically pretty much states, okay, it's going to be a renewal, but you've got to start from scratch and then go forward on it to make sure. And what we've talked about and have done here is that there's a question in here about maintenance plan and does the property have a written maintenance plan? And if it does, will it?
You know, Mr. Koppelman, you know it does.
Right. Well, and what we are thinking for the future is also that probably a maintenance plan ought to be, some sort of maintenance plan ought to be identified by the new owner if they want credit for it. But if not, then we need to make some real specific, a real specific record of what the condition of the barn is at the time that the preservation easement is granted, with photos and descriptions and so forth, so that down the line, if the barn is not improved, well, if the barn deteriorates, then we could go back to the applicant and.
Okay.
So I understand that the easement goes with the property, but is there any provision for when it changes hands that a public hearing is held again? Or is that the discretion of the town? How would that work? Or, a property could change hands within a year, and then the new owner might not be aware. Like, how do we ensure that easement is maintained when the hands change on the property?
Well, I would think that we would just have to, as I said, do periodic reviews of the property to make sure that the barn is being maintained. I don't know that the RSA, I don't think the RSA talks one way or the other about having a second public hearing once the easement is granted, because I think it probably presumes that since it goes with the property.
It's good for 10 years.
Right.
Do we have a list of the barns in town that have easement preservations on them?
Susan has a list.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
and the assessor. And
the assessor.
we have our own little list, but
Your
the
own
official
list,
list
okay.
would be with Susan or the assessor, I presume.
All right, as long as we have a list that we know how many we have, and
Yep.
that can be checked at any time. That's good. Other questions for Mr. Bean or Mr. Landry? Okay, any comments from the public, the audience, who would like to weigh in at all? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to close the hearing, and we go back into regular session and entertain a motion on the request for the barn. No, I already asked it, yep.
I would make a recommendation or a motion to approve the recommended abatement at 75% per the 79D abatement evaluation for Glenn Koppelman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion from the board? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Ayes have it, passed unanimously. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your work on this. I learn more about the town all the time. Okay, at this time, we'll open up the meeting for general public comment. Be there any? No? Okay, there being none, we're going to go on to committees and boards. This is going to be a new item on our agenda on the first select board meeting of every month, that committee members or commission chairs are welcome to come in and give a brief update on any issue that may be before them. I know the board members are all liaisons to different committees and boards, but if for some reason a committee chair or commission chair would like to come, then they should be able to come on the first Monday of the month under this item. And Susan, if you could notify the town chairs and commissioners that that's an opportunity for them. Again, emphasize brief. Mr. Landry? Absolutely, you're welcome to come forward.
I just wanted to mention that at our meeting last Thursday, we had a joint meeting with the Historic District Commission and the Heritage Commission, because we had two folks come down from the Division of Historical Resources in Concord. What the purpose of the meeting was to talk to us about, or actually to do what's called the quadrennial review of the town's certified local government status. That was one purpose. The other was to talk to us and get some information from us about the state's 10-year historical resources plan. And we didn't talk too much about that. But this certified local government program is one where it's administered by the state historical resources office, but it comes under the Department of the Interior, and it actually is a designation for communities that have a strong historic preservation program going. We are one of 29 cities or towns in the state, actually, that are designated as certified local governments, and to do that, the state comes down, we go through a lot of our processes. You have to have a historic district commission, an active historic district commission, to be a certified local government. But anyway, they come down, they review it, they make a recommendation to the Department of Interior that the town is one that has a strong historic preservation ethic. And so we were made a certified local government, maybe 2015 or somewhere around there. The beauty of it is that you get a lot of extra support from DHR, the Division of Historic Resources, both from the standpoint of advice and guidance.
But no money, huh?
Well, but they also get a budget from the Department of the Interior every year and for projects, for grants, and that money can only go to certified local governments. And again, there are only 29 of us in the state. We have been the beneficiaries of two certified local government grants. One of them was to do the historical and cultural resources chapter to the master plan, and then the other one was to get the Plain Cemetery on the National Register. So being a certified local government is really a very positive thing, and it reflects well on the town in general as far as historic preservation. So that leads up to, after the presentation, Laurie had asked whether I would be willing to give a briefing to the board about the certified local government in a little more depth than I just went through. And I think Glenn concurred in that. So if you're interested in that, I'd be glad maybe in a couple of weeks from now or at the next one of these Monday meetings to go ahead and do a little presentation for you about the certified local government, what it involves, and the kind of grants that are available and things of that nature.
Okay. I think we could schedule up for the next Monday committee liaison meeting. How's that, Susan? So the first Monday in May, or brief.
Sure. Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. And it's pretty neat that we're one of 29 towns. I think that's pretty cool. For sure. Thank you, Ernie.
Can I add to, kind of to go along with that, and in our hope to increase community involvement and awareness, I personally would like to see on these once a month, each committee or board have 10 minutes or 15 minutes to do a brief of what they do and promote their committee or their board.
We have 22 committees in town. We're not going to have 10 minutes for each committee every month. Not going to happen.
Can we discuss it?
Yeah, we can discuss it, but 22 committees every month is a lot.
I'm not saying they all do it, they rotate. And not all of them are going to want to promote or present something.
Right.
But we should give the opportunity to committees and boards if they want to come in and brief what they do. I mean, we can limit it. We can say, you got 10 minutes. Like, here's your elevator speech, go. But I think it's a good idea to raise awareness and hopefully participation of some of these committees and boards. Everybody's lacking on volunteers.
Correct. So I would further suggest, not only we limit to 10 minutes, but limit to 3 at any given month, so that we don't spend more than half an hour.
Oh, I was just thinking one a month, Ellie. I wasn't thinking like have multiple in one meeting.
Well, but this is set up so that anyone could come to give an update.
Well, sure. I mean, they give their update, but one is highlighted each month.
All right.
You know, you see what I'm saying? So Heritage next month, they would be highlighted to give their presentation. Everyone else can give their 2-minute, you got 2 minutes to talk.
Okay.
But one group gets a 10-minute slide presentation.
Yes.
I'm not opposed to doing this. I just want to be sensitive to our time schedule.
Oh, of course.
Well, there needs to
Of
be some
course.
controls on it,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
Sure.
Let me think about how to structure it, and I'll kind of present that. But I think it's a good way for people to showcase what they're doing, right? I think we have more people who watch at home than we.
Well, they read minutes. That's
They
for sure.
really do. So I think it's just a good way.
They definitely
do.
read minutes.
They do. So okay, I have that for action. then.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other committee boards? All right, then we'll go into committee liaison reports. And I'll just stay with you, Laurie. How's that?
I don't have anything. Tomorrow's museum, and then next week is wait for it, HDC, right?
Thank you.
Schedule is burned in my brain. I'll have to be careful not to go driving off to the meeting.
Glenn.
The only thing that I have, and I'm sorry that Ernie left, I was just going to piggyback on some of the stuff he said about the Heritage Commission meeting that took place with the state's folks about the certified local government update. As Ernie said, they came to do a quadrennial review, so every 4 years they have to come check the town out, make sure that the processes are being followed, and blah, blah, blah. They were extremely complimentary about the boards in this town, the work that the boards have done, the way the boards have worked together to get stuff done. I mean, I think one of them even said the word poster child in part of the conversation. Yeah. You know, and I said at that meeting, and I'll say it here, that, you know, when we're involved in it in our own town, you know, we see the good and the bad of the interactions, and sometimes it's easy to get wrapped up in some of the stuff that perhaps isn't as favorable, and, you know, you focus on that instead of you focusing on the good stuff. But to have a state agency, from an outside viewpoint, be very complimentary about the work that the town is doing and how the boards and the committees are working together to get stuff done, with regard specifically to the historical stuff, granted. But I mean, I think we need to take that to heart. We need to feel good about it, and just wanted to make sure that I said that.
Great, thank you. I have a new thing I wanted to bring up, and Laurie's going to remind me. I said earlier I'm tired of policies don't have anymore, but I'm going to propose one, and I'll tell you why. I had one of my neighbors had called me last week. He had heard about the auction, that we were auctioning kitchen equipment, and wanted an opportunity to bid on it because his son was going to be opening a restaurant. And I called Phil to ask if you know, what had happened, or if and we had agreed, the board had agreed that if it didn't go to auction, that an employee could bid on it and get it for whatever we had it on the site for. When I had talked to Phil on Tuesday, I had looked on the site, didn't see it, so I figured it was gone, but I called him, he said, yes, it was sold. And then I told my friend, and he said, well, what was the list of equipment? And I didn't know. And that was something I didn't ask Phil, you know, what was it, the items. If you remember, we had agreed to sell at auction the kitchen equipment that was stored at the rec center, thank you. And I did talk to Paul Butler the other day and asked him what was the history behind that? Why did we have restaurant equipment? And I guess an old gas stove was donated, and the town voted to spend, I believe, $20,000 to buy additional equipment to have senior luncheons there. And but Paul said none of the equipment was really hooked up, and that if we were to have senior lunch, and this was at least 7-8 years ago, it's been a while, long before COVID, you would need different kinds of tables and chairs to accommodate the senior folks and so forth, but it never really got off the ground. And in talking with Paul, I said, employee would have, and I don't know whether it was the highway department or which employee, I said, we need to notify employees if we're gonna have town equipment for sale and or town residents. And he thought that the town employee should have a first crack before we put it on the auction block. Either way, and I know, I said I didn't want any more policy. I think this one's important too, because number one, I knew that we had authorized Phil to send it out to auction, absolutely. And we agreed that if an employee wanted it, they could get it, that's fine. For whatever reason, it fell through, but, maybe we want to open it up to employees from all departments. And so in order to do that, we would need a process to notify people, or even have something on our website to let the public know if we had equipment. And it's usually in the past, it's been an old truck, either through the highway department or police or fire. That's what my memory says. So having kitchen equipment was unusual. So I think it would be helpful and fair, to be more transparent if for no other reason.
Oh, I agree, and I took a note from last week, and it's at the top of my to-do list to already draft it.
Okay, it's on your to-do list now?
It is
and
on my
off of
to-do
mine.
list, and absolutely.
And I had misread Phil's response to me that the deal fell through for the employee, but I still, I didn't go back I should have gone back to say, okay, what was the list of stuff so I could tell Jason about it, but I didn't do that. I just let it go. I said, well, we need a policy more than anything else, so that's where that one stands. And I have plenty, yes, Phil? Oh, it's back up there? Okay, all right, then I'll go take a look at it. I was fascinated by it. I had never been on there. I was surprised at the type of equipment and stuff, and the cheap prices was something else. So anyways, but thank you for that update as well. I have planning board tomorrow night for a planning work session, and that's all I have. And Wednesday is Seabrook Drill Day, so that should be interesting in and of itself.
Planning board still looking for members?
Yes, they are. They have 2 vacancies on the planning board. I know Mrs. Merrill has approached one individual in town to see if he or she is interested, but we do have 2 openings. If you're interested, please let me or Susan or Lynn Merrill know. How's that sound? Okay, Mr. Chuck.
Conservation meeting on Thursday. Fire department, as Ellie said, the Seabrook drill on Wednesday. And from what I gather, if it gets passed, they won't have to worry about it for another 2 years. So.
If they pass with flying colors again?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't failed one yet.
No, they have not.
And we did have a budget committee meeting on Wednesday, and Stacy Dion was elected chairman, vice chairman's John Pramberg, and the secretary's Mary Ann Roth. They're going to consistently meet on Wednesdays. Apparently there's no more Sundays, at least at this point. They're going to meet, depending on how the quarterly dates come up, but meet quarterly to be able to take a look at the budget, see where stuff is going, where it isn't going. At the same time, when Paula prepares the worksheets for that, and we will have one for us on the board here, as we started to do last year, so we have some idea as the year ends where we're going, what accounts are short, et cetera.
Sooner rather than later.
Right. Stacy is in the process of updating the Kingston budget ordinances. A lot of stuff has changed since the state has changed and we haven't kept up with it. So she's in the process of doing that, and we know it will get done right. We have not assigned liaisons yet because there is the potential for 2 new people. I believe there's 7 now, and Trish, 5 openings. Trish Tidd has volunteered. She'd like to come back as a regular member, because her problem was she has her convention in Florida when we have the deliberative, but she wants to come back. And then there's another gal that's interested, and I don't know if they've sent them in yet, but they're sending in their.
Well, we haven't seen them yet.
No, they're sending, this all happened, so they're sending in their letters and it will come through. So once we have those 2 on board, if they decide to come on board, we'll have a number to work with, and then the liaisons will be assigned at that point.
Okay,
So
thank you.
that's it.
I have a question about that. So I was sitting in the audience, and one of the members had a question, and would be for Paula. What's the plan of going out and bidding for new insurance companies, finding new, for benefits, yeah. Because I mean, open enrollment is like October, November, so I don't know what that process looks like.
So I'm already working on that. I have meetings with, we don't have to go out for bid, I just have to get quotes and stuff, so I have meetings with some vendors.
I had already asked Paula to follow up on that, because that was a main concern. I remember from the budget committee last year, on our part, because the rates went up so astronomically high.
Right.
And we weren't the only town that were impacted adversely.
Right.
So it's time to look at other alternatives, and we may need to split the package up into health in one and all other benefits to another, and we'll go from there.
It's difficult because a lot of the companies that municipalities go through are pools, so it's based on the needs of the people in the
that pool. Glenn, did you have something you wanted to add? You don't have to.
Well, I did, obviously. I turned my mic on. I was ready to say something, and now it's just evaporated. So apparently it wasn't important.
Okay, well, when it comes to you, thank you, Paula.
I'm glad to see somebody else has the same.
Yeah, well. Any other liaison questions, comments, concerns? Okay, Mr. Bakey.
Just a quick one. The police department, right after I was assigned to be the liaison, I went right down and met with Joel the following morning, like first thing.
Yep.
And Joel and I came to pretty good terms that he knows how to get a hold of me and I get a hold of him. I don't have to go down and babysit Joel. He does a great job. People are very happy down there. Everything is going very well. So we do have an open line of communication. And I actually had quite a good communication with Pedro as far as the liaison to the building department. Mm-hmm. The only couple issues he's had that he's brought to my attention was basically incomplete applications. So with that, he gets very disgruntled applicants, but it's plain and simple. They're not completed. He's given them a list. They got X amount of things to do. They come back. They're demanding permits, and he's not giving it to them. So he just wants to give us a heads up that, if in fact one of these people are going to walk in the door, I'm in full faith that he's 100% doing his job. He's doing a great job down there, and unfortunately, you got to have a complete application if you want a permit in the town of Kingston. So that's about it.
As it should be.
Correct. Nope, correct.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Everything he's told me,
Yep.
and he's brought it to my attention. He's doing a great job, and there's not a doubt in my mind of any questions, or I'd bring it to the board.
Good, thank you. Okay, under unfinished business, the first is the status update on the sound system components and billing. I'll let Susan start that parade.
We did have the technicians from the audiovisual company come in, and they were able to work with Adam to at least identify where the problem is with the sound to the TV, to the Comcast.
Everything's been resolved except the cable broadcast. And there is a receiver in that room that's not connected to anything. That is the receiver for broadcasting. So that's where the problem has been localized to one piece of equipment in particular. So we've made tremendous progress.
And
Now,
we did call the company. We found the brochure.
the corporate offices in Washington State.
Right. So it was a surprisingly good conversation. The man wanted to help troubleshoot right then and there. We don't have any maintenance agreement with this company. But what it boiled down to is he needs Adam to sit in the booth and do a trial broadcast so he can see what's going on. He said there is sound to the bulletin board that comes onto the TV. He said that's a good sign, but he needed a more direct look at what's happening, and Adam just hasn't had time yet to do that.
Well,
But
that was
that's
only
next.
last Wednesday, we've
Yeah,
done well.
right.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, let's see, we have a grant matching letter for the Main Street bridge, that's to be taken from the bridge, it's now to be taken from the bridge grant and not the infrastructure fund. Is that correct, Mr. Coombs? Okay. So we just need to sign that letter, is that correct? We have that in the folder here, thank you. The lease agreement on the state land is signed, but we need review of old lease document. Susan, what's the status on that?
I'm just waiting to hear, because I brought that letter forward, and the comment made was that at least one of you wanted to look at the old one first and see what we were renewing. So if there's no comment and that letter is okay, we can send it, it's already signed, but,
Did you have any comment on the letter, Phil, that's going? No? All right, okay. All right, that's good, let's sign it and get it out of here.
Yeah. And the next item was in the granite marker for the Joe Thompson Memorial Tree.
Yes, so this got started under the previous board. There was a motion and an action to plant a tree in memory of Joe Thompson. It was actually an initiative that started with, I believe, our town clerk tax collector brought it to our attention that Joe Thompson, a significant volunteer for this town, a former electrical inspector for us, had passed in 2018, and there really hadn't been any recognition. So we purchased a tree. We Department of Public Works planted it at the fire station, and the plan has always been to put a marker at that tree, a ground marker, and to once that is installed, we would do a formal dedication, if you will. But the next step, the tree is in, the next step is to get the marker. What's in your package is, and I checked local sources just to see if we could buy it locally, and it was hundreds and hundreds of dollars more. The company here, we would order it by online. Signature Headstones is the company. They're located in Indiana, so it's a U.S. company. The marker is granite, and the total price, including shipping, is $298. The wording that you have in the package is what I drafted up using their online tool to put lettering. And so we have two actions. One is for the board to approve whatever wording we would put on it, and then the next step would be to actually authorize the purchase of it. So.
Before we go any further, I did receive a call from Chief Pellerin today, who had an arborist review and assess the trees on the plains, and he says that this particular tree is dead.
A brand new tree?
Yeah, so you might want to check with Graham
to
find out what's going on.
Okay.
On the tree. Doesn't impact the marker, but it does impact the tree. I know.
Oh, that's
terrible.
Well, that's terrible. I paid for that tree.
I know you did. I know you did.
But if it is dead, I would certainly bring it back to where I purchased it and see if I could get a replacement, because I bought it from a reputable place in Exeter. So,
Sounds like Churchill.
well, there you go.
But either way, please follow up with him on the tree.
Okay, well, maybe I should follow up with Phil. Have you had a chance to look at that, Phil? I tell you what, how about if I go look at it?
Okay.
I can tell if it's alive or not.
Yes. I don't doubt that at all. I don't doubt that at all.
I'll take that as a follow-up.
Okay, thank you.
But regardless, it'll be that tree or a replacement tree, and we still want a marker.
Yes, we do. What's your pleasure, ladies and gentlemen?
I'd make a motion to.
Oh,
It's not a dead tree?
Don't cut the tree down.
So we have a group from UNH and the Urban Forestry Center who's doing a tree survey of the plains. And so I believe it was December when they had come out, they put a drone up in the air, looked around, and I brought them over to look at the maple tree that we have since cut down. He also looked at the Japanese maple, I believe that's what it was? Yep. So that one's alive and well. Oh, good. His only comment was that they do not do very well in wide open spaces like that.
So how can you say that it wasn't alive?
I think there was a miscommunication between what I had told Graham about the maple tree and then the new
okay,
maple tree.
okay,
So,
all right.
just food for thought on this. Our track record of keeping trees alive on the plains is not very good. And I brought that up to the forester or the arborist who was there. He had said basically what he had encouraged a lot of towns to do is when people want to do a in memoriam type of thing is having more of a board than a tree. So having something that people can donate to for trees to be planted on there, but having individual trees for people. I have had meetings with people, at least 4 of them, where the tree or the plaque on a bench has been removed or is no longer visible, and this gets into a gray area as to who maintains those. Obviously, the town is purchasing this, but people have put things on the plains that we're kind of on the hook to maintain moving forward, or there's an expectation of that. So again, not to muddy the waters again as you're trying to do something, but and obviously this is in front of the fire station, so it's a different location, but just something, they're finishing that tree survey hopefully the end of this month. And I was gonna ask that gentleman for kind of more examples of what they had done to put before the board, because what had started the whole tree survey in the first place is, obviously it's the plains, so we can't plant hundreds of trees out there for people. And the more benches we put out there, the more obstacles there are for mowing. So it's to get an idea of how we want the plains to look moving forward and how we want to memorialize people, but probably more than you were looking for, but your tree's alive.
Well, I don't see us make any changes here because we've already notified the family as well. To be honest with you, I don't see that changing.
well, if the board is comfortable with this wording, I would certainly want to run it by the family one more time to make sure that they're okay with it.
I don't think the comma's necessary. I would take out the comma, but other than that,
Which comma?
after dedicated Kingston volunteer,
Oh,
I would take out that comma. But other than that, I think it looks great.
Any other comments? Do I have a motion?
I'd move that we approve the Joseph W. Thompson plaque for
$98
$298
to
be
come
taken
from,
the Patriotic Fund.
Second.
Okay, further discussion.
oh, well, just logistically, if this passes, could I have the authority to work with the Department of Public Works? Because I think the order for it probably should go, and the shipping of it should go to the DPW,
Okay,
not to my place.
okay.
Right, Phil? Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion before you, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ayes have it unanimously. Thank you very much, Glenn, for your work on this project. Okay, the sale of town-owned land at 47 Newton Junction Road, discussion.
I've gone by the house, driven into the driveway there, and it's a, don't know how big the piece of property is, but it certainly has the house and a barn or in a car under a tree. But it certainly is a good buildable lot, and I think that if the town can take the opportunity to sell it for the revenue that it can generate, I would be all in favor of proceeding with this as soon as possible. It's going to take a while because there's a lot of stuff to go through.
There's a lot that you need to take under consideration. I had some of it from the NHMA. Tammy gave me more information today that also corroborates that. You're gonna have to look up the family, which isn't going to be all that easy. You have to give them 90 days notice since it's before the 3 years. And they have the opportunity to buy it back. So there's some legal issues there too that we want to make sure we're doing the right thing. I think we're going to need to talk to our attorney and make sure we're doing everything we need to do and get the notification out as best we can, because it's one of those cases where they're not going to be that easy to reach.
Find.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, just get the ball rolling is what we, it might, again, it's going to take 6 months to a year, but.
And get the process down right with that 90-day notification that we're
and-
planning to sell it, and make
And
sure
Patty
that's
can
done
probably
correctly.
give you, hopefully give you the guidelines. More, I mean, you have the guidelines, but whatever
Yep.
the legalese we need to go through, so.
So who heads all of that up? What office is this responsible for the notification and all of the, trying to find the family?
Right, we are. There's
Well,
no
but
other office.
but one of us isn't gonna do it.
Right.
Well, that's my, okay,
Yeah.
This is my
I've
assumption.
got-
all right.
Plenty of time, no problem.
You
Well,
better
if
call Cindy if
If it's okay for me to contact the attorney I'll put together everything I do know
Yes.
and
Yes.
have her give us some guidance.
Okay.
We'll start there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Need a motion on that, or you-
Do we want a formal motion to proceed inquiries on selling 47 Newton Junction Road property?
for
When she does the inquiries, I mean, we should find out that would go to all properties, not specifically that one, right, all town properties? So we can kind of use that as a guideline?
There'd be a procedure, right, but this is, well, we never had one in this situation before. This is the first time. Usually it's, if they haven't paid the taxes for so many years, then you take it over and so forth. Those days are gone now. They have a
Yeah.
new procedure. Let's run it by the attorney first and see what he or she says and go from there.
So Ellie, educate me, what's different with this one?
It used to be that if someone didn't pay their property taxes for 3 consecutive years, the town would own the property.
Okay,
And, period. We'd own it, we could sell it, whatever.
okay,
That's not the case anymore.
Okay.
Now you have to see if there are any owners or descendants of owners that would have claim to the property. And you can sell it for whatever the price would bear. You can take off your expenses and you can take off the taxes owed to the town. And then the subsequent proceeds would go back to the heirs. That's what's different in particular.
Right, the town
But
doesn't keep
notify-
it.
Go ahead.
The town can't keep any of the excess proceeds above and beyond our expenses or penalties.
we can't,
No, we used to be able to, now we can deduct attorney fees, processing fees, court issues,
So,
whatever.
if you don't have if you don't find any direct heirs to it, it's
Yeah.
kind of difficult to send them a check when they
Right.
don't have who they are.
right, where's
So
that money go then?
I'm assuming it eventually would go back to the town.
To the
I
town.
would guess.
Well, that's what
I mean,
the
that's what we'll
process
have to
needs to
find
be.
out.
Okay, right, okay.
And you have to set up an escrow account for that excess funds, and it gets
a
more
lot,
complicated.
sure.
That's
Okay.
correct. It's not as simple as it used to be.
But at least the bottom line is you end up getting all the taxes back. I mean, that's the point of the,
Right, and
The
your
sale
expenses
and
to
the expenses.
retrieve those taxes. Right. Okay. Item next is the preamble amendments. If you remember, a few meetings ago, we took that out because there was an issue on how much time are we going to spend to update the preamble as to the most recent date they were changed, whereas each of the regulations has an update on the first page underneath the title. Well, I guess it was a problem for the planning board. They want us to at least put it back in, even if the dates are not as updated as they could be, because they felt it's helpful and resourceful.
I mean, I didn't know that it was discussed at planning board, but that was my position sitting on this board, having been on planning board, is that having that one sheet that at least would show you the most recent revision, and that's all it's doing, is just adding, whenever at a warrant season, if there was updates, that newest date would be there, and at least you would, assuming that that page was kept up to date, when you open the book, you'd know whether or not you were looking at
Right,
a current version.
And that was our position. We didn't have the time, didn't want to take the time to update those dates, so we're not gonna do that. We're still not gonna do that. We're gonna put the preamble back in,
But that preamble is it's just one date. It's just
the last, it's supposed to be the last, most
correct.
recent update.
There's a running list.
But the ones that's in there now has no dates.
Oh,
Am I correct in
It's
that?
just got the most recent.
The most recent, what we think is the most recent. We just took the whole preamble out.
okay. Well, I know that the book was updated significantly last year in March, and so that would be, and then it's going to be updated again because of all the changes that just happened, so there'll be a revision date this year.
What would you like me to do? I mean, I have a meeting tomorrow night at the planning board. We don't have to take action tonight. If you want more information, I'd be happy to do that.
The planning board is suggesting that they would like it back?
That's correct.
Well, then I would support that.
I mean, the onus is on them to update it, not on us.
That's right.
All right.
So
I'm
there's
good
no,
with that.
there's no work for us to do.
That's handled at the planning and zoning office. That's
that
where
make it easier?
That's where that
Yep.
happens.
They're just notifying you and asking whether or not you approve the change.
I would support that.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
That's a go.
all right.
Let's see. And once again, our planner consulting services agreement with Glenn Greenwood just came in for the current year.
Is it, oh, it was due for renewal?
Yes, last December, November. That's in the purple packet over there you have. Could I have that, please?
It's not in.
No,
It's in the
it's in
orange one.
It's in the orange one, okay. Don't go too far with that one either.
I believe it's the same as what he had in place for last year.
What are the dates of it?
January to December, if I'm correct.
Well, maybe, I was gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was running like a 1 April to 31 March.
I've been on this board for 4 years, and we go through this
Every year.
every year.
That's funny.
Okay, Did you want to take a motion to rehire him? I mean, he's such a good guy, but he's a pain in the neck about this stuff.
Paula,
Well-
has he been,
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Paula, has Glenn been putting his invoices in every quarter for his pay?
Yeah, he's up to date through the end of the year.
Oh, that's a start.
Okay, we put that in last year because he wasn't getting paid till the end of the year, and,
Okay, that's good.
Well, given his history with the town, his knowledge of the town, and I know that the rate that he's charging us, we would not be able to duplicate by hiring someone else, and we'd be bringing in someone who had basically no knowledge of the town, and it would be starting from scratch again. So he also does work very well with the folks in the office downstairs and with the land use administrator, and he's very good in working with applicants as well. So I see no reason not to renew the contract, and I'll make a motion to do so.
second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, we'll sign it when, there's other things that need to go over in that packet for you anyways. Volunteer Appreciation Week is April 20th, 27th. And I asked, Susan and I had talked about this the other day, and what I'm thinking is we should do a volunteer employee appreciation either in June or September. And during a Volunteer Appreciation Week, send each committee chairman a letter of appreciation to them and their members, thanking them for their work on town.
And then do a combined.
And still do it combined. We didn't do it last year.
Volunteers later.
The year before, we did it at the highway.
We did it 2 years ago at the highway department, right. But when we didn't do it last year, but we should do it every year. So it's a great event, and it was well received by the community members and that have volunteered and the employees. So I'd like to see us do that again this summer. And, but
Sooner rather than later, just rather than wait till September.
exactly, maybe Paula and Susan can work out some of those details of when and where and all that stuff. And, but still send something out during Volunteer Appreciation Week, thanking the volunteers for their service to the town. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay. All right, let's go through the stuff in this orange folder first. Okay, we've got Glenn's contract, which I get, and then there's a discretionary preservation easement. Is that Glenn's? Yeah, okay. And then there's the hazardous mitigation assistance local matching commitment letter. And I think I need your vote to authorize that.
That's the one that is not coming out of the infrastructure, is that right? I thought it was a different one.
Yep.
Right, so no public
It's a
hearing
bridge
is
project,
necessary.
right.
Right.
Then we have a permanent application for can't tell what this is for. It's either veterans or right, one of each.
That's probably the solar, because the other one would have a DD 214 attached.
Yep, and that's on the next one. Yep, that's the veterans one. And then we have, this is the invoice processing and accounts payable procedures that we've.
Why does it look like that?
It's still in review mode.
Why is it, the invoice? That was approved last week.
Yeah, but we haven't signed it into
But
effect.
that shouldn't be, that is in the wrong format.
What needs to happen is that the file needs to be pulled up and under review, accept all changes,
There's
and
no
then
comments
it
on
puts
this,
it back
yeah.
out to full.
Sure,
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
Got it.
But it hasn't.
If the signature page is full, it needs to be full, not, that's like in a draft mode. We shouldn't sign something that looks like that. Though we shouldn't.
All right. That won't get signed. This other one is for the purchasing policy.
No, that one's
No,
correct.
this is fine.
That one's correct.
And this is the letter that we had signed already for the DES services, right?
Right, for
Yeah.
the lease, the lease.
This one you got. So that's all set there. And that's, here's Glenn's contract. We want to put that in there too. Okay.
It just goes in here. Yeah. Did you sign all this stuff yet? No. Oh, well then here, I don't know why you gave it to me. No, you go it, you do it. You can do it.
Oh, this is something that has to be
Okay.
addressed. This is a letter that I've asked you, talked about the food truck. Do you want to talk about that now? Or should we, or put it on the agenda for next week?
I believe that this is just informational for us.
Just says the planning board.
This is a planning board issue that came up with regard to food truck on a particular
That's right,
property.
that's right, yeah.
Planning board discussed it and determined that it was a significant enough change that it needed to go for site plan review.
So should I bring that to the planning board tomorrow night?
Well, they might, I don't know if they're going to discuss it tomorrow night, but this letter has gone to the owners of the property, and it's just a copy to us,
Okay,
just for FYI to us.
okay. And the only other thing, I
I
had
have a couple things under board business.
Okay, there are a couple of checks here from the Kingston Days proceeds.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe one is for the carriage barn.
Right, the Carriage and Sleigh
which
Museum on
had some
Marshall.
damage, right.
Well, we were gonna donate anyway, so hopefully it fixes the damage.
But I can't see us giving money to the museum.
The committee voted,
Which committee?
the Kingston Days Committee, the committee voted on donating money to both of the museums. Stacy, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah,
It's
this
about
is
the
a-
checks.
The one for the carriage house, I don't have an issue with at all.
Right.
Okay, I do, because we're putting money from the left side pocket to the right side pocket, and I don't like that. Just saying, that's my opinion.
What do you mean from the left side to the
It's
right side?
It's town money. It's town money.
So,
So why are we giving a town organization money when they have bills and we pay for it? Why are we writing them a check that they can't cash?
So,
Stacy?
in September, when we had our initial meeting, we made a decision to donate money to the Kingston Carriage Museum because he put the carriage there, and we did have some damage, but we wanted to donate the money to him because he graciously gave us a carriage for us to use for our selfie station. It was a great hit. We also stated that we voted to give money to the museum. And that we did that in September. And then we wanted to make sure all of the numbers worked out so that we had our final numbers. So we did that. And so we would like to give some money to the museum, and I get that it's going from the left hand to the right hand. So my other hat says that it would be unanticipated funds that would go in front of the select board to be accepted on behalf of the museum.
Why did you decide to give them money? What's it for? I have no idea what.
It's one check, it's just for the museum as a donation to help with whatever they want to do. So
How much is the check?
300.
And $250 the Kingston Historical Museum.
It should be, both should be 300. That's what the committee voted on.
Well, I didn't open the envelopes. I understand it's one is 300 and one is 250. $250 for the one. It makes no sense for the town of Kingston to write a check to the Kingston Historical.
Well, it was from the Kingston Days Committee. It wasn't from the town of Kingston, and I know that's semantics, but it was for a lot of reasons, to help promote the heritage of the town and for their help on Kingston Days. So the committee voted for it. I guess we have the authority to say no, but we also said for 300, so I don't know why the check is for 250, but.
Be that as it may, that's what the check is for, and I'm assuming this one is 300, which is the carriage house. I understand that, because especially when we damage equipment accordingly, and that is for $300. Okay, what's your pleasure, ladies and gentlemen?
So Paula, how are you gonna make that work? There's a check coming from the Kingston, well, it's from the Kingston Days, but it's on a town of Kingston check. So the museum's getting a check as another town entity.
Well, Kingston Days doesn't have a checking account, so it's just a savings. So anytime money comes out of the Kingston Days fund, it comes out of the general fund, and then I transfer from the Kingston Days fund to the general fund. Does that make sense? When we write checks, like for expenses for that. So it'd be the same thing, I guess.
I mean, I guess, again, don't know why they would do that either. But it is Kingston Days, it is a separate fund from the town. So I guess you have, as you've done, the right or whatever, and since you waited till the end to make sure you had a profit, which you had a good profit, so it was well done from that perspective. It's just,
But the museum doesn't have its own account.
So it's gonna go, it's
It goes in the
basically
general
moving
fund.
from the Kingston Days account into the town of Kingston account. I have a real problem, I really do, because we support everything they do. We've spent over $400,000 in upgrading that building. You know, it just doesn't make sense. We're gonna give them 250, that it makes a difference in all the scheme of things. It's not my decision to make, I'm just raising the issue. So,
like, the technical issue is the fact is that the Kingston Days is a separate entity with their own funding and their own, they can spend the money any way they want.
yeah, but they get a lot of support from the town. It's not like they operate in a vacuum.
Well, they don't get any.
It was all
support from the
fun,
town.
we didn't, every dollar was raised, it wasn't, there was no money, well, I mean, we paid back everything that the town ceded us, so we
So the
paid
mon-
for everything, nothing was given to Kingston Days by the town.
The money from Kingston Days we used were funded from previous Kingston Days.
Correct.
And then, so we do not, Kingston Days does not run on taxpayer money. And we did fairly well last year, so we wanted to share with other organizations in the town that may not have done as well as we did last year. So the committee voted to give money to these two organizations.
Okay.
So is this the only one? I mean, you did the other one, I understand that part, but
We did the other what?
There's
any
two
other
checks.
money to any other?
There's two checks,
Just the two?
just that's it,
Okay.
just two checks.
Two checks, $300.
Well, I would like the 251 corrected to 300,
I
if we
can
can
do
do
that.
that.
That was, I
So-
think there were multiple emails, so I had one that,
So
the one
money
I
that-
printed had 250.
The $300 check goes into the general fund?
The one made out to the Kingston Historic Museum.
Both of them came out of the general fund,
Yeah.
and I have to transfer
She'll debit
from
out of the
Kingston Days fund
Days.
to the general fund
I understand
to
that,
cover
but so-
that money
Yeah.
Both checks.
Yeah,
Check.
for both.
So I guess
But I don't
my
know where
question
the
is they don't
museum,
get the $300 then?
I don't know where the museum check
So
would
what's-
go to.
Yeah, that's my, if the thought is for that, and the museum knows that you guys are trying to help them out, but the money's not going to be put into the museum's fund, and it goes to the general fund, which means it never may get spent on anything that the museum has. It doesn't,
There is
from
no
that
museum
perspective,
fund.
I don't mean, if they're not getting, they're getting credit for it on paper, but they're not getting the $300.
Right.
So,
Check.
a question. I realize that it's on a town check, and the only reason it's on a town check is because the committee doesn't have its own checking account. So it's a sort of like being a fiscal agent, passing the money. Anyway, but was it the Kingston Days desire to have it go to the museum or to the Friends of the Museum?
I was just gonna say, could it go to the Friends of the
Because if it goes to
Museum?
the Friends, they are a separate entity, and they are the fundraising arm.
Yep.
For.
And they could receive the funds.
And they could
If you
receive.
think I didn't want the museum to have it, I can't even begin to tell you how I don't want the
And,
Friends.
but the Kingston Days Committee voted,
For the Kingston
Yes.
Museum,
yes,
not,
For the museum, not the Friends.
Okay.
So it was the Friends or the museum?
the vote was, I'm gonna pull up the minutes, I don't want to.
And again, if in fact it's, you're right, I mean, if it's in fact it's going to the museum, not the museum, the Friends of the Museum, which is, again, a separate entity and a fundraiser, you know, at least the check.
And a
would-
501c3.
Right,
So the check could get cashed there and it went to their fund. It makes no sense if it's not, in my opinion, to take $300, put it in the general fund, and they get no
and I
credit
don't
for it.
think when we did this back in September, we realized all of that. We wanted to help the museum. If that only way to do that is through the Friends of the Museum, then that's probably what should happen. But at the time, we weren't thinking general fund and they don't have a budget and blah, blah, blah. We weren't thinking about that.
And the other, I mean, the other factor is you're doing it for them, and of course, Kingston Days is not happening next year at this point, so it's a moot point, but, you know, if I were the library, or I was some other committee, why wouldn't, and knowing that you had funds and knowing that you're going to give money to help support something, would other people be coming after it in the future if that was the precedent set?
They didn't solicit money
Right.
at all. They didn't ask us for money. It was the members of the committee thought it would be a great gesture to help two museums in town who work towards helping heritage in the town. That's what the intent was.
One's private and the other's not. The Carriage House Museum's private.
Right.
It does make a difference, because we support the museum to the tune so far of over $400,000. I just don't understand it. But it's, I'm one vote, so whatever you guys decide is fine with me.
Well, just a point of clarity here. I mean, when we've spent a lot of money on that building, catching up on a lot of deferred maintenance, and it's because it's a town building and we're responsible for maintaining it.
That's correct.
It happens to be that it houses our museum. That's true. But they do a lot of stuff that's programming that is money that they use money that they raise through the Friends arm of theirs.
Yes.
And if there was a way to have this money go to the Friends, it's going to end up being used by the museum, because that's the purpose of the Friends, is to raise money to support the museum activities, like, you know, some of the archival stuff and the displays they do and the programs they run. So
What is your pleasure?
What, did you find
what are
it,
the
Stacy?
It says Kingston Historical Museum.
Well, as Laurie said, I mean, there probably wasn't maybe knowledge or maybe in-depth discussion about, you know, which path it should go when they made the vote. I don't know.
I mean, I have a problem with it going into the account and nobody's getting it. So if that's the case, then I would be voting no.
Well, the only reason to vote yes would be because it goes from the Kingston Days account into the general account.
But wouldn't it be no different than if I wrote a check personally and said, I want to give this $300 to the museum? Wouldn't it just become unanticipated funds
It'd be a
for the
donation.
museum to be used?
It would be a donation.
It would be a donation. Why?
It's the same thing. It's
So-
a donation. It is a donation. From Kingston Days, it's a donation from the Kingston Days.
But they're not, to go to the museum itself, they're not getting any money. So
But-
why would, if it's gonna go to the Friends, then that's a different issue. I don't have a problem with that.
So
No.
let's not talk about the museum. Let's say I wanted to donate to the rec department, correct?
Yep.
And I wrote a check to the rec department. If I wrote a check to the rec department, then it would come here, correct?
Yep.
And it would be considered unanticipated revenue to the town, only to be used by the rec department. So wouldn't that
It's the same
be-
thing.
I guess that's kind of how I thought it through.
Okay, so what we should do then is give this check back to Paula so she can reissue one for the $300 as voted by the Kingston Days, and then have it as an action item to accept the donation and unanticipated fund at a subsequent board meeting.
Well, because I wanted to present it to them at their meeting tomorrow, but,
It's not gonna happen.
well, no, it's not gonna happen. So, do we have to, because I wanted them to know about it before we accepted the donation on their behalf,
You can
but,
tell them.
yeah, I will tomorrow, yeah.
'Cause the only thing I also see is that it's a town committee giving to a town committee.
I'm not even gonna,
Like, it's,
I think we're gonna have to go with what Stacy said and leave it at that, because it's.
Well, I just wanna, I'm gonna just double check about unanticipated funds, because
Well, unanticipated funds can be given
Well,
from any source, but.
Right.
if it's
But-
in town to in town, it's
But
the
it
same.
is, except that Kingston Days is its own entity. The only reason that if we could write a check, we would have probably written the check, but we can't, right? So we don't have a checking account, we only have a savings account, and it goes through the town, but the money is not taxpayer money. It is all raised and managed outside of that. So.
Okay, I think we exhausted the topic.
We're done with that.
Yeah. All right, the only other thing, thank you, ladies. The only other things before us is this two signature for, to make deposits into the two town accounts by Tammy, Paula, and Marie from the town treasurer. And one is the ACA, which is the debit account, and the other is the regular checking account. So that's in there for your signature. And also Paula has asked us to sign her COLA authorization because someone else should sign it besides her. So that's in here as well.
I had one other thing.
Okay.
It's in everybody's packet. So I'm requesting a revision for our policy creation and approval process. I deleted the form for policy numbering because I'm updating it all of the time, so it's more of a working document. But specifically what I added was section 525, administrative changes that do not impact content, i.e. changing the date on a form or updating the template, do not require a review by department heads or approval by the select board. So by adding that, it allows administrative changes to be made to an approved policy without having it go through the whole process again.
Okay, so.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So does this go to all the department heads and so forth beforehand?
Now, I wouldn't think so. But we can. I mean, yeah.
I mean, since we want to get rid of that piece of it, yes or no? Because we had two, we had the other one.
Let's send it through. You're right, let's send it through. So this one and then
Facilities maintenance and service.
the
request.
facilities maintenance one. Yeah, we'll send both of those
And
through.
then they
Yep,
can go on our agenda for next week
yep,
for approval.
to sign, yeah,
How does that sound?
yep.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Was that everything?
Yeah. Yeah, Northeast Vegetation Mosquito Control notifying us that they're starting their annual remediation in town. That's in there. We have an ongoing contract with them. Okay, and any other comments?
The only other thing,
Yeah, go ahead.
in the packet, and we don't need to talk about it tonight, or we don't need to talk about it at all. There's a nice great big sheet for
I
my
saw
benefit.
that.
The over-under,
Your budget.
over-under. Well, it's nice and big, I like it, look at that sucker, huh? Huh? The little tiny one, yeah. So anyway, on this here, I had spoken to Paula before about getting, what we were turning back in, basically, which is the 348, 549, but it does give us what each department was over, or in the red, each department that was under.
For last year?
Yeah, 2023. Just, it's informational, we can talk about it if we want,
Okay,
or
that's
Paula
good.
can define it, but at least the budget committee will get a copy of this too. It's what we need to see, we need to know
How we did.
how we did, and, is there an issue with something that we need to look at next year? Anyway, it's very well done.
Okay.
That's all.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bakey.
One last thing.
It's okay?
So, I don't want to beat this dead horse, you've already brought up the issue about the kitchen equipment.
Yep,
So, that has appeared now on the auction site.
that's what Phil said, yeah.
So there are a number of items on there that are listed
Yeah.
at that kitchen. And the starting bid is $100. So I can tell you that when that kitchen was made, we had a donated stove, but the town of Kingston wrote a check to Alternative Sales for $21,000 for equipment for that kitchen.
For all the rest of that equipment?
Correct. So that's only 5 years ago. That's a far cry from $100. So I happen to know for a fact that if I could coordinate maybe through you
Yeah.
or Phil, we'll have John from Alternative Sales go down there and revisit that site and he may have an outlet for that equipment that may bring you more than $100.
Well, I would suggest, if you don't mind.
I don't mind it, I don't mind at all, but I do know that number was written 5 years ago from this town for $21,000, and that was, they had to put in a fire suppression system, they had to put in a hood. There were things working. I happened to plumb that building for the town with Rich Chandelier. So there were things working. I don't know what their status is, but for a free input, he would look at that and probably give you an idea of what it's worth.
So.
I know stuff goes down.
$21,000 value 5 years ago, now 100 starting bid?
Yeah, so that's what they paid. Now I have to understand, when they do like an Ansel system for fire suppression on the hoods, that's all like custom stuff. That's expensive. So it's not like you're gonna go tear a suppression system out and put it in another restaurant. So there is expected loss, and that stuff upgrades quite a bit.
Okay,
And it may be a lesser number, but I know he has an outlet for used equipment. He sends a lot of it overseas, and it may draw you a bigger number than $100.
okay.
But if you look at that list on that website, there's quite a few pieces, and the starting bid's $100.
Okay.
So I could probably entertain the idea of bringing him down there and get us a little better idea of what it's worth.
If you would, that'd be awesome.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay. And then, when we get the policy down the road, we'll deal with it then.
And in coordination with Phil. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. I want him to talk to Phil. Yeah. Coordinate it with Phil, for sure. Okay, anything else to come before us?
Move to adjourn?
Yeah, we get things to sign, boys.
No, I noticed that you guys do that on purpose.
What, leave you for last? Next week, I'll make you first. How's that? Okay, if there's no other business before us, the meeting is